Number 1 right here. It says, what is the slope of the data below? Well, we have a graph. So you have a graph right here. So you find the change. The change here, 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 right? And then the change here, here, here. And that's going to be your slope because it's going to be the change in y over the change in x. Okay? Once you're done and you find the change in y over change in x, you're going to graph it onto number 1. Number 2 and number 3, say graph the following. They give you the equation, or this one gives you the equation, this one gives you the line. Okay, so you got to graph the following stuff. So you're going to use that y equals mx plus or minus b form. Okay, that form includes m is the slope or rise over your run. B is your y-intercept, okay? So y-intercept. When you have something like this, find the y-intercept first, figure out that point, then do your rise over your run. And then you should plug it in. Remember, you're just plugging it in for these 2 points. Everything else is there for you, okay? So on that one, on this one, it's talking about temperature. Graph the points. Okay? And then you'll get started on the back. Take your time. Do it right. 10 minutes. Okay? On your own working. Okay, number 1 talks about finding the slope. So you should have done that earlier when you said change in y over change in x. So the slope right here is plus 12, right? Plus 12. Plus 12. This is plus what? 2. Plus 2. Plus 2. 12. So the change in y, we're going to always tell our graph x is on top and y is on bottom. The change in y is what? What's the change in y? 12. The change in x is 2. That simplifies down to 6. Okay? It just says what is the slope. It doesn't even say write the equation. It just says what is the slope. That's the slope. Okay? It also says graph the data. So we would come over here and graph our points. We would say 2 and 12, 4 and 24, 6 and 36, and then 8 and 48. Okay, so you should have all of those points. Okay, look at number 2. Actually, after you do that, you should graph the line. And so I'm going to stick my line through there like this, and I'm going to put my arrow. And that should be all that you have there. Okay, number 2, graph the following. We must stick with this form, the y equals mx plus or minus b. Okay, so we need to stick with that form. So the first form, b is our y-intercept. So I'm going to find y-intercept. It's right here. So my b is -1. My m is 2 because it's right here. Okay? So when we graph something, we start at the y-intercept. Okay? You always start with the b. Katana. Okay, so we're going to start with the b. So we're going to go to -1. -1 is going to fall on your y-axis, guys. Every time. This is what we're focusing on, is this y-axis. Okay? So you're going to go to -1 on your y-axis, and I'm going to put a dot. You good with that? Okay? From there, we do our rise over our run. We did our rise over our run. I just didn't write it in a fraction form. But 2 over 1, 2 is going to be 2 over 1, and that would be our rise over our run. Okay? So I'm going to rise 1, 2, and I'm going to run 1. And I'm going to go ahead and do a couple of points because that's easy. 1, 2, 1. 1, 2, 1. Okay, so these are my points right here. I'm going to draw a line through these points and put arrows on that, and then I've graphed the data. Okay? Start with your y-intercept. Do your rise over your run. You good with that? Yes or no? Okay. Yes? Let's look at this one. Write an equation below for the data. We're going to use this form right here. So, what did I start with a while ago? I started with my y-intercept. Okay, so I'm going to start with that y-intercept. And it's where it crosses that yellow line, the y-axis. So my y-axis is going to be this point right here. What is that number? -2. So I'm going to write -2 for my y-intercept. Okay, then I've got to find where it crosses the crosshairs. Okay, guys? Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's easy. This one's a little harder, and it crosses right here and right here. So from there, I'm going to do my rise over my run. My x is always going to be here. My y equals always over here. What's my rise over my run? Well, I'm going to rise 1 and run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I would be 1 over 5. It is going down the stairs. So it's a negative. I went to the left also. I either go to the left or I can go down the stairs, and that's either way that we tell that it's a negative. Everybody good so far? Okay? Okay. Number 4. What is the slope for the information given? Also graph the data. Okay. It's talking about temperature. It's talking about degrees. Does that make sense? So the temperature at 3 p.m. was 78. At 6 p.m. it was 66. What happened to it? It dropped. Let's graph the points. At 3 p.m. it's 78. Right there. At 6 p.m. it's 66. Right there. Okay? So you can tell it dropped, right? Yes? Okay, I graph the data. What is the slope? And graph the data. Okay, there's my graph. Now my slope, it changed from 78 to 66 and went from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Right? So it went 3 hours and it dropped 12 degrees. When I'm looking for slope, I'm looking for a consistent rate of change. I don't go in 3 hours. I'm going to go per hour generally is my slope. Okay? So this reduces. What is 12 over 3 reduced to? 4. So it's a -4 slope. Because it dropped 4 degrees per hour. Makes somewhat sense? Yeah, a little? Okay, let's look over at the back page. Number 5, it says graph the following. What did we say? We said, okay, so number 5, it says graph the following. So we need to make sure we have M and our B. We need to know that our B is our y-intercept, and I'm gonna make it blue here. And then our M is our -3/4. Okay, so I'm going to write it. Okay, so right here it needs -3/4. And our B is -2. So we go to our y-axis. I'm going to do it in highlighter. Makes it a little easier. Okay, so we go to our y-axis. We graph our y-intercept first, which is the -2. It's got to be blue. And then we do our rise over our run. And it's negative, so instead of going up and to the right, we go up and to the left. So we're going to go up 1, 2, 3. And to the left 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we have another point we can go down 1, 2, 3. And to the right 4. Hey. Just stop. Once we do that, we can connect the points. And we have our line. Okay, number 6. Okay, we're going to make sure we have our M and our B. So M and B. Our M is our, wrong color, is our 1/2. And our B is our 4. So once we do that, I'm going to write it over here. This is our rise over our run. And our y-intercept. Okay, so we graph the line, which would be this line right here. We would go to the y-intercept, which would be 4. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to put a dot right there. And then we would do our rise over our run. And notice we run out of room. Rise, run, And our next point would be here. If we went this way, it would go this way. So we're rising 1 and running 2, and then we're connecting our points. Okay? And then number 7, it says write an equation. We're still trying to fill in that y equals mx plus or minus b. So we need to find our m and our b. So we can find our b almost immediately. We could say that b is where x is 0. So this is our x and this is our y. So our b is going to be 0. And then we find the change. The change from here to here all the way across is going to be adding 150. And it's going to continue to add 150 every time. Okay. And then the change across the top is adding 6 every time. So 150 divided by 6 is going to be 25. So that's going to be our m right here. So I've kind of written in the way, but it's going to be this right here. So 25x plus or minus 0 is y. So I'm going to rewrite that equation as y equals 25x. Looking at number 8, it says write an equation. So I'm going to find my m and my b, and then I'm going to write it in form y equals mx plus or minus b. So my m is where it crosses the y-intercept. Okay, y-axis. So it's going to cross right here at 0. Okay, so that's my point right there. Okay, and then where's the next place that it crosses at the crosshairs? If you note that it crosses at the crosshairs at every spot. So like here, 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 it's going through every time. So our rise over our run would be 1 over 1, but it's going down the stairs, so we would have a negative 1 over 1. So we would write our equation, y equals negative x, because we don't need to write that 1 there. And then plus or minus, we don't have a 0, so it's 0, so we don't need to add that. So this is our end equation here. Last question. Okay, number 9. Write an equation. Find the y-intercept. Okay, it's right here. That is negative or positive 1, 2, 3, 4. So our b is 4. Our m is, it's going to go right here. Right here. So I'm going to rise. I'm going to go down 1. So it's going to be negative. And then run 2. So it should be, I'm going to write that as an equation. Y equals mx plus or minus b. Y equals negative 1/2 x plus 4. Okay, and then our last question. Write an equation. I know it's funny. I know the words are funny. I know it should be flipped, but the data is not flipped. So we're going to use the data as it is. I know it should be apples per basket, but we're not doing that. We're going to do like it's written. So the change here is plus 1. The change on top is plus 15. So my change in y would be 15. Nope, I'm sorry. My change in y would be 1. The change in x would be 15. So 1 over 15 is my equation, is my m. And then where does it cross? At 0. So I would say plus 0. Well, I don't need that, so I'm just going to rewrite it as y equals 1/15 x.